Welcome to Saturday Morning Retro, episode 32, a podcast focused on retro gaming and giving ourselves an excuse to play our collection. Before we start the show, we want to thank all of our wonderful fans who have supported us, and if you want to show support for the Rated G Network, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/RatedG4Gamers. You can also find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Rated G for Gamers. And finally, please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. We appreciate all the love. I'm your host, Dave Rotino, and this is my co-host, Dan, the podcaster formerly known as Classic Robinson.
Salutations, Dave.
Salutations, Dan. All right, it's the last Saturday of May, and as we do every month, this is our Saturday Morning Retro episode. And I don't know about you. Well, actually, I'm pretty sure I know about you because this is your favorite of the two podcasts that we do. So I know you're hyped, but I am also very hyped today. Well, I think it's going to be a good episode.
I'm hyped for that, and I'm hyped that it's my birthday month.
Hey!
So we're gonna knock out all these shows, so I can have an extended birthday and not have to worry about recording while I'm away. I know. Is that every day you turn 26? You know, I mean,
no, it's not. And today is one of those days. We can certainly say, well, even though your birthday's not today, but when this episode comes out, I believe your birthday will have happened. Is that correct?
No. So when the regular episode comes out, my birthday, it will be on my birthday.
That's right. Okay. Well, happy early birthday, Dan. Hope you enjoy
Thank you.
Hope you enjoy the little birthday vacation. Should be a good time.
All right, so this is Saturday Morning Retro, my favorite episode, my favorite show that we do. We've just been playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. All right, that was it. That was a great episode.
There you go. Listen to the regular show for our recap of it.
Yeah, there you go. All right. All seriousness. We have an awesome show this month. Coming up, we're going to talk about Darkstalkers, the Night Warriors, and also we're going to discuss Joe and Mac 2, Lost in the Tropics. But as we always start Saturday Morning Retro Show, this time in gaming history, May 12th, 2005, the Xbox 360 debuted on MTV. It's hard to think about it, right? Like you would think the 360, like the 360 in retrospect is one of the biggest consoles or most successful consoles of all time.
For sure, yeah.
But we didn't know that was going to happen back in the early 2000s. Or mid 2000s, and because you would think Xbox or Microsoft would want to show that off at like E3, 2005, which they did. They elaborate with price and games and stuff. But we first got to look at the 360, the Tower White 360 with the hard drive on top, if you remember the original one, on MTV. In MTV.
Yeah. Did you watch that presentation? Because I remember watching that presentation at a friend's house on his old 32-inch tube TV. That's how old it was. And
I don't remember. No, I didn't watch it live.
Okay.
But I remember hearing about it back in Circuit City. I don't know what day that. I don't know what. I don't know what day this was.
It was May 12th, 2005.
No. I don't know what actual day.
Oh, what day of the week it was. Right.
Yeah, I don't know what day of the week it was, but I remember hearing about it when I went to work, all the merch. So basically, we worked in entertainment department. I sold, DVD players and TVs and audio whenever needed, and you were primarily a TV TV sales guy. Right. And merch were the salespeople that were like helping people with like CDs and DVDs and games and stuff like that. And the merch guys were always talking. They'd be talking about the 360. It's like, oh, did you see 360? Oh my god, it's gonna be great, right? So I remember hearing them talking about it, but I didn't watch it live.
Oh, okay. Well, it was well. I can tell you how 2005 this was because hosted by Elijah Wood, right? 2 years off of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So he was hot fire at the time, right? So they got him to host. The Killers did a performance, right? They did Mr. Brightside. Lil Jon was there. There was an interview with then executive producer Jay Allard, right? Who has since moved on. Ryan Cabrera was there. He was hot for a minute. Wilmer Valderrama, Fez from that '70s show. Omarion was there, and it was just kind of.
You already showed the age when you said Little John. I'm sure people. I'm sure if you're at a certain age bracket right now, age range, and you listen to the show, you're like, who? Little who? Little John hasn't been relevant since. It's been like maybe 15 years.
Ever since maybe Usher had a hit. It's been a while.
I think after Dave Chappelle parodied him on the Chappelle show, like Little John just was done more.
Yeah. Oh. So it was very, very mid 2000s, but it was cool because we got to see it, and we got some actual interviews, we got some real info in there. It looked cool. It was certainly a half an hour hype, but it was good. It was cool. I was in. Now I didn't get mine. Till maybe 2007. I think I got mine when like Halo 3 came out. So I was a little bit.
I got mine when it released.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember. I mean, I've told the story several times on the show, on a regular show. I picked it up for myself when it came out because I worked that day that it came out. And I remember we were giving out vouchers outside for people that wanted to come in, right, and claim a 360. The warehouse manager at the time let some of us put a couple to the side so we could purchase it. I did, and I had family that came and lived with me, and my cousin, aunt, I told the story before. My aunt famously told me, like, hey, she's down on her luck, not gonna have any money to buy my cousin any gifts for Christmas. So I wrapped the 360 up, and I said, hey, I think there's a gift under the tree for us. Has both our names on it. Had to make sure he knew it was mine too. But I let him open it, and he saw his 360, and he went ballistic.
Oh, so there you go.
So I did get it. I did get it when it came out. Mm-hmm. All right, Dave. For the whole reason why one of the reasons why we even started a separate show. You got any good gaming pickups for the month?
I've been taking a little bit of a sabbatical of sorts. Not that I'm, you're always on the hunt. Your eyes are always out there, but I've been kind of conservative. So beyond picking up Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, I don't have any pickups, Dan.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I think that may be a first. Now, I know that you have some good pickups, right?
Well, I definitely picked up Zelda, and we talked about that on the regular show. Like the first Zelda show, we talked about our pickups, and I showed off the special edition and everything. Mm-hmm. I did pick up Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Nice.
Beat that. Great game. Maybe in contention for Game of the Year. I got Crazy Racers for the GBA. Now, Crazy Racers was they had. I have the crazy. I think I have like. Is it in connection with the Wacky Races? Is it Looney Tunes? I gotta find it. I know Crazy Races has like
Wacky Races was Hanna-Barbera.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that I have for the Dreamcast. I know I have Wacky Races for the Dreamcast.
Right,
and I think there was one that came out for the NES as well. I don't own that one. That one maybe a Christmas gift this year. But I definitely own. I picked up Crazy Racers, which was a little bit up there, a little higher in price than I would have thought about. I got Turok Rage Wars for the Game Boy Color.
Oh, okay. Not the N64 version. Okay.
Because I already have the N64 version.
All right.
As you know, a lot of games, for the handhelds were completely different games, like side-scrolling, action games and platformers and stuff, compared to the console counterparts that may have been, more of a 3D, like in this case, this is like a side-scrolling, shooter compared to the N64 version, which is a 3D, a 3D shooting game. So, I did get a gem. Not a hidden gem. It's not hidden, especially for the price. But I picked up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 Radical Rescue for the Game Boy.
Ooh. Yeah, all right.
Which I did pay full price for, by the way.
Yeah,
so now I have...
That's a little up there, apparently.
Now I now have completed my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Game Boy collection. I have 1, 2, and 3. I did pick up Flicky for the Genesis. Now, Flicky did come out for the Nintendo Switch Online service under the Genesis banner. I thought I had this game. I guess I never picked this up, so I wanted to pick up a physical edition. Nice. F1 World Grand Prix for the N64.
Okay.
Illusions of Gaia for the SNES. Another game I thought I had. It was I think it was like the second in like a trilogy of games that they made, because I know Blazer is like in this universe. That was like another
Soul Blazer. Soul Blazer, I think, is the one.
It was Soul Blazer, yeah. Soul Blazer. It was like an action RPG, right? That came out for the SNES.
I think they're related in gameplay, but not in story. Illusion of Gaia is weird because it's like it takes place on Earth, and you go to real world historical sites. So you visit like Mayan and Aztec temples, and you go to all these different places. It's an interesting game, to say the least.
So I know the completionist sort of just re-completed Illusion of Gaia, and I think he did mention that this was a trilogy, probably in. It was not like you didn't need to play each game to it wasn't like a numbered trilogy.
Yeah,
but they were all separate games, but in the same universe. And the third game that came out was a PAL and Japanese exclusive. It didn't come out here in the States.
Right.
I started with a T. The name started with a T, like Terramana or something.
Terra Enigma. That's the one.
Terra Enigma. There we go.
Enigma.
Yeah, that was the one.
Honestly, I rented it and like almost beat it in a weekend. I got to the final boss of it. Nothing to say anything about the difficulty, but I thought it was okay. It didn't really grab me. I mean, I played it enough to like get to the end of the game, so I guess that's something, but I don't know. I feel like it's very mediocre all in, but that's just me.
Okay. I picked up this. Definitely I would consider a hidden gem. 40 Winks. I got it for the PS1. If you know this was a game that was supposed to come out on the N64. At the time that the N64 was a relevant console. It didn't. They canceled it, but it was done already. It was completely done. They just never released it because N64 sales weren't up to par, and I guess it was like sort of the end of the life cycle. But it famously did get released for the N64 back in like 2019, I believe. You can still pick this up, a complete N64 in box version of it on eBay. You pay a little money, nothing crazy, not little Samson levels of crazy, but you can pick it up for like maybe like $150 if you really want it. Probably even less. I did pick up Super Bubble Pop for the PS1. Okay. Global Defense for the Sega Master System, complete. I love those Sega Master System hard cases, just like the Genesis. And Face Breakers KO Party for the Wii. I do have Face Breakers for the PS3.
Just in case you wanted more Punch Out. Here's your Face Breakers.
Yeah, I didn't know I didn't know a Wii version, so I had to pick that up.
All right. With motion controls, I bet.
All right, Dave. This is the show. I think this is one of the best top 3s we've ever done. In the spirit of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom being released and us dedicating pretty much a show and a half, if not 2 shows, to Zelda, I would like to do our top 3 Zelda games of all time, not named Tears of the Kingdom, because we must give it its due and play it for a significant amount of time and let it just like marinate before we can name it the best Zelda game, right? So Dave, you go first. Give me your top 3 Zelda games of all time.
I will give you my top 3 Zelda games with Dan, with no hesitation. As soon as we came up with this question, I said I already have my answers. And you may know already the 3. We're gonna start.
Wait, Before you start, is
Okay.
there any particular order? Because I have an order. I do have an order.
No, I'm just kind of throwing them up there, but
Okay.
I guess I can out of the three, I can tell you which one's my favorite for sure. It's definitely been solidified out of these, but you got to start with the OG. The original, the Hyrule, what was it? The Hyrule Adventure, I think, was the actual subtitle of it. The Hyrule Adventure, The Legend of Zelda, in Japan. Love the OG one. Got tons of good memories. Christmas '87. Remember getting the game. I mean, I've talked about it at length. Right? Love the original. It does have its problems for sure. The game is easily breakable. You can do dungeons in somewhat any order. You can almost beat the whole entire game without the sword, but I think that's like kind of cool. They give you all the tools to kind of experiment, go get out there and explore, and figure the world out. Right now, there are cryptic clues given by some of the inhabitants of Hyrule, right? Which kind of they're a little bit of a head scratcher, which is kind of par for the time, I mean, I think English was certainly an issue up until the
no more than two. I think two had the most and the worst.
Two was also bad too, but I mean, this like carries through into almost the early 2000s before they started like giving a damn about actual good translations. We had all these like weird misspelled words and clues that didn't like translate from Japanese to English well. But I think beyond all that, the game was like good enough that, you could get out there and kind of explore and figure it out. Now, they did include a map with it and a little like hint guide. So if you did get stuck, you could kind of crack it open and like take a look. The map wasn't completely filled for good reason, right? They gave you like, here's a good chunk of the starting part of the world, and then like the upper part was kind of like, shaded out or grayed out, and it's like you got to figure out what's going on up here, right? But they gave you enough to like get going in it. Love that game. This is amazing. My second pick, and this was actually the tough one. I went back and forth. I'm not super huge on the early 3D games. I know everybody says Ocarina of Time is like the best game ever. It's got some issues. Certainly got some issues. I think I talked about it 2 weeks ago on the first Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom episode when we kind of went in depth on it. I talked about the troubles and the problems that I thought Ocarina of Time had. Now I know monumental, hard to bring a game from 2D to 3D, right? It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time. A lot of franchises fumbled the ball moving into 3D. Some of them went too early, didn't really do it right, but Mario and Zelda, there's a lot of things they did right. The camera controls, the Z targeting lock on for Zelda. So I got to give it all that. That's not really in the mix for me, though. Don't really have the nostalgia for that necessarily. It's a good game. I don't think it's a great game. It's got some issues. Same thing with Majora's Mask. That's a little bit better for sure, but it's also kind of weird. So, I love the Game Boy games. I love the Minish Cap for the GBA. I love Oracle of Ages and Seasons. A Link's Awakening, also very good. So those were kind of in the mix. The Super Nintendo game, spent a lot of time.
Yeah, okay, you're gonna name every little Zelda game.
I'm just saying.
Number two.
This was the one. This was the one that was tough. Which.
All right.
This guy, very impatient, Dad. I'm building a scene here. All right.
You're gonna name every Zelda game.
No, I'm not gonna name every Zelda game, but
all right. The other games didn't make the mix. What is your number two?
So for my second slot, it came down to three. It came down to Wind Waker. It came down to Minish Cap, and it came down to A Link to the Past. All right. And out of the three, I had to go with A Link to the Past. It's great.
Wow.
Yeah, it brought the series forward, right?
Well, AKA Zelda 3, that was what it was coined for many years before it actually was officially announced.
Yeah, they had it in Nintendo Power specifically with Zelda 3 coming out. I mean, this was like the first appearance of the two different worlds, the light world and the dark world, which was kind of cool, which got carried through to Ocarina of Time, and even in even in the Game Boy games, right? You could like travel through time, travel through ages. So they groundbreaking. That's where we got the hook shot for the first time, the flippers, lots of iconic weapons, magic, all that stuff. So very good. And the final one, no surprise, is Breath of the Wild, the GOAT. And that, out of the three, is definitely number one. It's my favorite. Because it carries the spirit of the original and improves upon it. Right? They build upon the essence of exploration, kind of figuring things out on your own, and they design the game world in a way that, like, it's not like other open world games. It's not that frustrating because they make it a point to guide you in the direction. They show you, they don't tell you, you know, and just the way they build the world out and whatever, they're like, you should probably go this way. And they do it with intelligent, I guess, world design and world building. Amazing game. Love it. That's my three. That's my three, Dan.
I feel like you picked all the Zelda games all at once. Like,
what do you mean?
Like you cheated. You just named every Zelda game ever made.
I was going through my thought process for number two because that was the tough one. That was the tough one.
If I didn't say anything, he would have named the CDI games too.
I did leave out the Wanda Gamelon and Faces of Evil. Come on now. Come on now.
He would have named all the CDI games as his favorite too.
Yeah, well those were obviously a close second.
Well, surprisingly, not gonna lie, we have a similar list.
Okay.
And because we have a similar list, I'm gonna do an honorable mention just to be a little bit different.
Okay.
To say, I think Wind Waker definitely should be up there. I guess if I had to do a top four, Wind Waker would be a close four for me.
I'm with you.
You know, I know I wasn't a part of the whole, the lynch mob that was going after Nintendo because Zelda wasn't realistic, because I wasn't a big Zelda fan to begin with.
Oh, wow.
I because I don't really have big nostalgia for Zelda like that, right? Like I didn't play the N64 games. I wasn't really that much in it. I was a GoldenEye kid, right?
Sure.
Like that was it. Like I didn't even have Mario 64, so I wasn't nostalgic for Mario, right? At the time of the N64 generation, I was in first person shooters. Like, I always wanted to get Perfect Dark and never got Perfect Dark, but I got, Turok and GoldenEye. I was really big into those, and Duke Nukem, right? I had Duke Nukem 64. I played the crap out of that. Like that was my N64 was for first person shooters at the time.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I'll just say on the artistic style front, listen, a good game is a good game, right? Even if you don't like the art style, the game could still be great, right? And there's no reason to get crazy over the art style. If it's bad, it's bad, and you just don't have to play the game,
I know, but you know how, like, we play in Tears of the Kingdom, and we're, like, trying to get from one end to another, and we're running and jumping, and, I mean, I guess it's more so with Breath of the Wild, because with Tears of the Kingdom, if you have a lot of the ancient tools, you can make a car or a cart or something and go and try to and get through it that way. But like if you Breath of the Wild, it was, unless you had a horse, it was really hard in the beginning to get from one place to another.
For sure, yeah.
And when you had Wind Waker, is like it's really bad when you're in a boat trying to go from one island to another.
Yeah,
island.
that was definitely
not like you're swimming.
That was
it's
definitely
not like
a sticking point. Yeah, especially at the end when you had to get all of the pieces of the Triforce, and it was all over the map, so you had to go to like each end of the map on the ship. Yeah, too much.
All right. So I would say my number 3 would be the original Legend of Zelda.
Hey,
the OG one, for all the reasons that you mentioned.
Great minds think alike. This is good.
I am not necessarily nostalgic for Zelda, but I did have friends in the like early on who had Zelda, the original Zelda, and played Zelda, and I heard about it all the time, and I got a chance to play it for Saturday Morning Retro, the original, and beat it and loved it, and all the memories came back of me watching my friends play it back in the day.
Right.
I'm just so happy for Nintendo Online, Nintendo Switch Online rewind feature, because it could be tough it could be tough. I'll tell you, they throw enemies at you, and they are relentless. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, and I think the best part of it is, especially if you had an NES at the time, and you only got 1 or 2 or 3, like a handful of games. You know, because you weren't getting all the games all at once. You were getting a handful of games either for your birthday or for Christmas. That they flipped everything upside down. You had the Dark World, which was the same world, just like minor changes in the dark.
The second quest.
Underground. Yeah, second quest.
Yeah, second quest. Yeah, that was crazy. And if you look at the intro scroll. Right, if you let the game, like the intro title, run for a little bit, it tells you a little bit about the story. And Miyamoto was smart enough between the first game, the second quest in the first game, and the second Legend of Zelda, the Adventure of Link. They referenced the 3 pieces of the Triforce, right? Because in the first game, you build the Triforce to enter the Ganon's lair and then beat Ganon. So the first quest builds the first Triforce, the second quest builds the second one, and then they actually reference Triforce number 3 in the second game. It's very interesting.
I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah. He had the lore built out from way back. Ugh.
So my second game, going to be a shocker to you. Be surprised. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to name every Zelda game. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Go ahead. I think I got most of them when I was going through my rant.
It could have been the Minish Cap. I was thinking about that. I played that. It could have been Oracle of the Ages. I was playing that. No. I'm joking. Breath of the Wild is number 2 for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I know. Breath of the Wild is number 1 for a lot of people. Breath of the Wild is number 2 for me. For all the reasons that you said is number 1 for you, is number 2 for me. You could do anything. I loved the fact that, I got all the hearts. I must have did most of the shrines. I got all the 4 beasts, and I got all the hearts, and I got a lot of stamina. And the reason I love the game is the reason why I hate the game at the same time is because I just didn't go to Ganon because, I'm more of a linear type of player. I want you to show me where you want me to go to finish it.
Right.
And because I didn't have that, I just forever just aimlessly went around the map.
Sure.
And unlock things and save villages and destroyed enemies. And try to do all the shrines. I didn't get all the Korok seeds, but I was looking for them. And again, because I don't have a linear experience, I'm just going around talking to people. And before I stopped playing, I always met someone I thought I talked to, but I didn't, and I got dialogue and a new mission. Right, so that whole experience of just going anywhere, you can climb anything, you can jump anywhere. That was amazing.
Right.
But my number 1 Zelda game of all, as of right now, is The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake.
Okay. Yeah, the one on the Switch that came out like 2 years ago.
It is the only... Well, it was the first. I don't say only. It was the first Zelda game I ever beat. It was the first Zelda game I ever got truly invested in. Mm-hmm. And... wanted to know what happened next, and I didn't know the story. I know you knew the story. I didn't know the story, and I don't even I don't want to spoil it. I mean, the game has been out for like 30 years, but like I didn't know anything about like the plot. I mean, I knew about the plot, but I didn't know like Biggie said, it was all a dream. I didn't know about that, so. This was that's all I'll say, and I didn't know anything about it. And it was a game. It was originally a Zelda game that had some Mario crossover with enemies from the Mario games that were in it. That was kind of wild. So it definitely. I love the remake. I love the art style. I love the little changes that they made, and it was the first Zelda game I ever truly got invested in, and that's why it's number 1 for me.
Nice.
So on that note, we'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to dive deep into our backlog and talk about Darkstalkers, the Night Warriors, and Joey Mac 2, Lost in the Tropics. we're back. All right, Dave. Let's dive deep into our backlog and talk about Darkstalkers, The Night Warriors, and Joy Mac 2, Lost in the Tropics. But let me start with Darkstalkers. I'm not gonna lie, I was curious about this game.
Mm-hmm.
My first foray into Darkstalkers was the PSP game.
Right. They did the port of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I talk about when we were talking, Circuit City and 360. When we got Circuit City, I had the PSP. I did buy Darkstalkers. I never owned the original on the PS1, so this was a journey for me. Like I love the PSP port, so I was like, I wanted to play the original game. I didn't know this originally came out in 1994 in the arcades. Mm-hmm. So technically, this game is a little older than I even imagined, because I at this point I wasn't really going to arcades that much back in the 90s, mid 90s. So the PS1 North American release for this was March 28th, 1996, and the Japanese release was March 22nd, 1996. It was developed by Capcom, published by Capcom. The port to the PS1 was done by Psygnosis.
Oh, that I did not know. That's awesome.
So they ported the arcade game to the PS1.
Mm-hmm.
It only released in arcades, PS1. Obviously, they did port the collection to the PSP, and then this also came out on PlayStation Network digitally. It's a fighting game. I did play this on, before Saturday Morning Retro, I did play this on my original PS1. And I'm talking about the the actual PS1. I'm not talking about just PlayStation 1 in general, the original PlayStation. The PS1.
The PSONE. Yeah.
Yes. So a little background on the story on this game. It was in Japan. It's known as Vampire the Night Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Weird that they kind of changed it to Darkstalkers and not Vampire the Night, because I don't think, translation wise, I think if it was called Vampire the Night Warriors, I think it would have still done well.
Or Vampire America. Saviors.
Yeah.
That
would have done well. Like, just calling it Vampire, like, that would have done well. But
sure.
I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Darkstalkers, cooler name in my opinion.
Sure.
Call it Darkstalkers in all regions, right? But it was called Darkstalkers in North America compared to Vampire the Night Warriors. Either way, can't go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know this. This title started as a Universal Monsters game, or at least it was pitched that way by Capcom to Universal.
Right.
And Universal refused to license their monster characters out, which prompted Capcom to do their own monster characters.
I feel like that was a dumb move on Universal. Why not? They have them all. They have Dracula and Frankenstein's monster, and they got all the classics. The Mummy. I mean,
in retrospect, it was dumb. But remember, the game came out in '94, so they probably pitched it in '92 or '93. Games,
sure.
Games weren't where they are now, where of course they would license, right? They probably would jump to do a license like that right now.
Well, I bet they didn't know how hot Street Fighter was, because
correct.
That was and Capcom is the company. They're like, hey, we want to do another fighting franchise based off your intellectual property.
So Capcom, I mean, there's no trademarks for a vampire, mummy. They even had a Catwoman, literally Catwoman, Sasquatch called Bigfoot, an alien, and a werewolf, just to name a few, right? With Dimitri as the lead character, as the vampire, because the vampire obviously is always going to be like the lead character in any type of monster movie game or any film or anything like that. So
right.
So that was good. Each character has their own unique fighting style. Just as an example, like Catwoman's fast and agile because she's a cat. Where the Mummy or the Sphinx is more of heavy attacks. They're more like a Zangief type character.
Sure. How many total in the game? Is it 8, 10? In the
so
the first
I mean,
one?
it's a normal. And the first one's a normal fighter, best of 3, 2D fighter with a roster of 10 characters.
Okay.
and you have to win 12 you have to beat 12 characters to complete the game.
Okay. So they got a couple boss characters in there too. Okay.
Yeah, the story is actually, I know, a fighting game that has a story that no one actually pays attention to. The powerful alien demon Pyron invades Earth to add to his collection of planets that he's devoured. The world's most fearsome monsters are the last defense of mankind. Right? Has a little bit of Mortal Kombat-ish into it, right? Doesn't it? It's like to save the Earth.
Right.
Save this realm, this planet. Instead of realm, it's this planet.
All right.
I feel like they took a little bit of liberties from Mortal Kombat, if you ask me.
Oh yeah, with like the Outworld or whatever, and the characters coming through the portal. Yeah.
So I mean, this is similar gameplay to Street Fighter 2. Similar 6-button control gameplay system that Capcom developed for Street Fighter, with new features like air blocking, crouch walking, and chain combos. Right? It's this was and you also had like a special gauge meter from Street Fighter 2 Turbo,
right?
That they use. So they took a lot of liberties from Street Fighter. If you are a Street Fighter fan and play Street Fighter, totally similar, style fighting game. This isn't a Street Fighter player trying to play a King of Fighters type of style game.
Right. They basically improved upon what Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo had, added even more stuff with like a complete new roster of characters. So, yeah. I remember playing this in the arcade back in the day, and it felt fairly natural, the quarter circle forwards and the charge characters back forward and whatever. Very, very kind of similar controls.
So the selection screen is the same as Street Fighter 2. And funny enough, with the world map layout and fighter selection, where they just sort of they put the map on the bottom instead of the top. Where in Street Fighter 2 you had the map at the top, right? And you fight, and then you pick you select the fighter, and it'll pick a part of the where in the world where you're going to fight at, right? Germany or India or something like that. Except for the characters aren't necessarily distinct characters of that region, like in Street Fighter, right. So, and I thought it was also cool the versus screen. So once you pick your character, and they say, okay, and he goes to the versus screen. I thought it was cool that it was like a portrait of the different characters, like it would be hanging up on like a spooky haunted mansion.
Oh, neat.
So it was like those little details that just made the game. So, graphic wise, large sprites, matching backgrounds and environments. You had to, and they did have destructible environments, right? Like where you would throw somebody into a table or a glass, it would break. And certain backgrounds, very detailed, and I love that about this game. And I didn't notice that until I started playing it four-sided on a retro, like the Bigfoot stage, where you'll have like the Sasquatch, the different Sasquatches just in the background, jumping around, hanging around, like they're in the jungle. The Frankenstein stage, the background is like you're in the laboratory and you're in a bed. You see the bed and the bloody sheets where Frankenstein was created. They had detailed animations too, which was pretty awesome. Where like Dimitri, after he wins, he will sit there and laugh with his hands on his hips, or he'll bow, right? Like especially if you win if you win two matches in a row, he'll sit there and bow, or if you even losing animations or getting hit animations where Frankenstein, his eyes and his brain would be popping out of his head, or the werewolf at the start, the werewolf will be a human, and at the start of the match, he'll turn into a werewolf, right? So those details, awesome. Like I thought that was pretty awesome. Like that made the game. Those small details.
Yeah.
Most of the game sounds like a Castlevania boss fight. For the most part, like a spooky Street Fighter. Definitely great music, great soundtrack, familiar sounds with a spooky twist on it. They did have some stages that were less spooky and more high tempo music to fit the environments, like the Sasquatch stage. Because when you think of Sasquatch, you don't really think of anything spooky. It's more like looks like it's, not in a jungle. Sasquatch is like, more of like you think of like Alaska in a sense like
snow-capped mountains. Yeah.
You do have an announcer, by the way, you do have an announcer on here who will say, "Get ready, fight," in more of like a grungy voice. But he does not announce the winners or losers or anything. He doesn't say you win or you lose like in Street Fighter.
Oh, weird.
Just get ready. It's just get ready, fight, right? So, when I thought about playing this game, Precisely on Retro, the most, I was like, this is Street Fighter with monsters. Like, this is awesome. But what I didn't account for were the load times of the PS1. Compared to today's standards, they're pretty long. But I had to think about it in 1996 standards. I was like, it's not that egregious. Okay, it's not that egregious, but they are long.
I'm gonna have to say this is the one time where the Saturn excels over the PlayStation 1, because it was designed to be a 2D console, and it had double the amount of RAM. It had 2 megs versus the PlayStation's 1 meg, and they even had the RAM expansion card you could put in the back for certain games to give you a little bit better performance and some extra frames of animation, right? If you had that in there. The Saturn games, the Saturn 2D games at least, I think 9 times out of 10 they ran better on the Saturn. So comparatively, I think the Saturn wins out in terms of performance there. But
I can't even like get mad at that. Like that's like partially true. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right about that.
I mean,
listen, if you like Street Fighter, the original Street Fighter 2 and Turbo and Hyper, like you would. This is a game for you. This is up your alley. It was hard. I mean, this wasn't around during the Metacritic days,
right?
Obviously, right. I couldn't find a lot about the game, and maybe that's because I was mostly researching 96. I should have been researching 94 for when it came out, because this is a port of the arcade game,
right?
And a lot of when you try to. If you don't actually have the magazines of the time, it's kind of hard to find out, like, the top 10, 100, whatever type of games, of the early to mid 90s, right? It's a little bit easier to find it of the late 90s and 2000s, definitely. I couldn't find a lot about this. I know Darkstalkers 3 on the PS1 was sort of deemed like the game to play if you want to play Darkstalkers game, and it's one of the top fighting games of the 90s, top 10 fighting games of the 90s, I think. I saw. But I did see an IGN article, very short IGN articles. I think they sort of reviewing older games, because IGN definitely wasn't around for this. They gave it a 6.5.
Wow. Jesus, okay. This was for the PlayStation port, right, of the arcade game.
Correct. And a little quote from an article. Unfortunately, Darkstalkers pales in comparison to the bigger 3D monsters that have been released for the PlayStation, namely Tekken and Toshinden. But as far as a 2D fighter goes, Darkstalkers is still one of the best.
Wow. I played Battle Arena Toshinden for the show, the original. It is not good. Tekken, the first Tekken much better than Toshinden, but also the first Tekken's a little raw. I don't know if I agree with that, but okay.
I definitely don't agree with it, because if I had to rate this game, I definitely give it an 8.5.
Wow, all right. Yeah, I remember being like fairly high in it when I used to play it in the arcade, like the couple of times I went in, popped a couple quarters in there. I was impressed with everything you said. Like I agree with your sentiment. Yeah, 100%.
I beat the game twice. I pretty much used Dimitri, because he's the main character in the game. He is sort of positioned as like the Ryu, right? Because it's a vampire. Vampires are like always like going to be issued like the number one in any monster themed game or movie or anything, intellectual property, it will always be the vampire is like the number one, either number one villain or number one protagonist, right? So Dimitri is issued it's sort of positioned as number one, and even in versus games, right? When they have Capcom versus anything, Dimitri is in that game as a representative of Darkstalkers, the series, right? So I've played it with Dimitri. I've played it with I beat it with Dimitri. I beat it with the mummy character as well.
Oh, Anakaris, yeah.
Yeah, Anakaris. I've beat it with them. So I definitely disagree with this. This is like if you like any Street Fighter 2, not the original Street Fighter 2 games, no matter what, Hyper, Turbo, Championship, you name it, you pick it. If you like any of the original Street Fighter 2 games, you will be right up your alley, the original Darkstalkers.
Yeah.
So if you do want to buy this game, Luki, as of today, has it
How much?
Loose, not complete, for $80.97. I'm sure.
Disc only.
Disc only. I'm sure if you go on eBay, you can still probably find a complete copy for probably like under $100 or $100. So it's kind of kept its value, right? Because I think when it came out, it definitely was in this $50, $60 range. I don't think it's not going to be crazy. It's not going to be $400 or anything like that, but you could definitely get it for like around $100.
Yeah. Okay.
So Dave, tell me all about Joe and Mac 2 Lost in the Tropics.
Oh, let me tell you about Joe and Mac 2.
Because I'm already lost after Joe and Mac 1.
Are you? Well, it's not much of the plot to the first one, to be honest, but okay. So, this is the sequel to Joe and Mac 1. This was a console exclusive for the Super Nintendo, funny enough. It was released in Japan February 18th, 1994. It was released in April 94 in North America, just a few months later. And in the EU, it was released November 1995. This was developed internally by Data East, published by Data East, released solely on the Super Nintendo, which is funny because the first game was released on like everything, Game Boy and Genesis and Super Nintendo and Amiga. They went all out. Part 2, no, just the Super Nintendo. And it is a 2D action platformer. I would almost say a mascot platformer. But you play as cavemen, so I don't know if that necessarily fits in, but it is very much a 2D action platformer. And like I said, it's a direct sequel to the Super Nintendo one. And it's funny because I was doing a little bit of research. In Japan, this is known as Joe and Mac 3. Because Data East made another game in the middle between Joe and Mac 1 and 2 called Congo's Caper, which is very, very loosely based in the Joe and Mac universe. So that's
I heard about Congo's Caper, but I didn't know they looked at it as Joe and Mac 2.
They're considering it Joe and Mac 2, but it's a loose relationship at best, which it doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, it's a caveman game. It's a whatever. It's a side scroller. It is what it is. Also, I was kind of looking up some stuff because it looks like there is supposed to be an exclusive update, like an exclusive, I guess, kind of remake for the Intellivision Amico. But as far as I can tell, that I haven't found any other info other than we're going to kind of be working on it until I came across the PC version, which came out last year, new Joe and Mac Caveman Ninja. Now, this is for the original one, not for the sequel. But, you can get an updated version with updated visuals and some new content. So I would say that it's not going to be coming to the Amico. But we shall see. And if it is, it's definitely not going to be exclusive anymore. And then I also think there was a compilation of Joe and Mac 1 and 2 and also Congo's Caper, which I think came out by a limited run style company. So if you do want to play it, that's the way to get it. And I don't think I necessarily mentioned, but I did play it on the Nintendo Switch Online because they have that as part of their Super Nintendo offering. So I did end up playing it there. As far as the story goes, it's pretty basic. I think the first one was you got to save the cave women of your village. So every stage ends up culminating in fighting a giant dinosaur, and then you save the cave woman, and you get a kiss, and you keep moving it on. You keep saving all the maidens till you save everybody, and then game over. This one's a little different. This one has Gork, who is a big hulking caveman who looks like he didn't skip leg day. The man is pretty brolic. Comes into your village, steals the crown of the chief, and you basically have to go get the crown back from Gork. There's your story. Now, there is a little bit of a twist to it. You do need to get 7 rainbow stones, which, if you played a Sonic game, it'll sound very similar. Now, in the Sonic game, it was optional. In this game, it's required. You got to get all 7 stones, and then you can unlock the final stage, which you fight Gork in. All right, and that's essentially the game. As far as the graphics and sound goes, I don't have a lot to say, and I know that's surprising, Dad. It was very unimpressive. The soundtrack was just okay. It sounded like 16-bit, upbeat kind of, chiptune music with like a caveman twist. Nothing really to write home about. Graphics are fine. Not really much better than the original, to be honest.
Come on, was it this not the greatest SNES game graphically of all time? No,
somebody certainly thought so, but I'll save that note for later. It's just there wasn't really a lot to it, Like there were some like little details and whatnot. Like one thing that was kind of cool, like if you end up like picking up a piece of meat, you get health from it, right? But then also, because you ate a whole piece of meat that was on the bone, you've ingested some bones. So you get to spit out the bones as projectiles, which was kind of neat. And then if you're in the water, like certain stages, you're like going against the current in the water. If you duck down to like pick something up, or even just duck down in general, you'll ingest water, and then you can like spit water out in an arcing motion as like a weapon. So there's some like little details that are like kind of neat. If you pick up like if you pick up spicy peppers, you'll like shoot fire. It's kind of cool.
Okay.
There was a little bit of thought to it.
It's like Zelda.
Yeah, a little bit, but definitely not as good. So you get about 7 levels. It ends in a boss rush, and then you fight Gork. Right. Well, you fight Gork twice. Spoilers. Right. You fight him. And then there's a boss rush, and then you fight him again in his final form, and then that's the game, all right? It's pretty standard side-scrolling, You're kind of running through these different environments. There's the jungles, there's the ice world, there's the lava world, there's like the waterfall level. It's pretty, standard stuff that you would see in a side-scroller, right? Now, you do get different power-ups as you go through, kind of like in the first one, right? You can pick up like an axe, and you get like a melee attack that also shoots out a projectile, which is kind of cool. And I think you can upgrade that like one time. And they did add in rideable creatures, so you can ride in like a pterodactyl, or you can ride in, I think, like a little brontosaurus or something, a little baby dinosaur. The problem, though, is that it's a one hit. It's one hit. Yeah, it is, but it's like one hit and it's done. And like the hitbox is so egregious that you're gonna lose your character like right away. The little partner. It's not even worth jumping on them. It's terrible. Now you as the character, you get like 5 hearts or whatever, or 5 pieces of meat is your like health, right? So you can take a little bit before you die. Your companions just die right away, and yeah, it's just not even worth it. The enemies, I was not a fan of this gameplay, if you can tell, Dan. Like the way that they place the enemies and the way that you get to attack it's a little bit cheap. You have to be real considered with your movements, and it's not really intuitive of like, how to hit them without getting hit, right? If that makes any sense.
No, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so it wasn't like great. It was okay. You know, I was able to get to the end of the game. So it certainly wasn't terrible. Like the controls were fairly tight for what they were. I think the enemies were a little bit cheap in some of their attacks. I could say that. Now, one thing that is new in this, which they didn't have in the original, is there is your home village, which is the one that gets ransacked. So there's not much to do there. And you leave immediately and then start on your adventure. But there is there's this tiki village, which you get to after the first stage, and it's like a town, right? It's like a Zelda 2 town, right? They have vendors, you can walk around and talk to people and whatnot. And there's a store where you can buy stuff, right? You get you get stone wheels as currency, so you can use those to buy things. But really, the only thing you need to buy is health, right? After you beat a stage, whatever the health you had is what it is. So if you're down to 1 health, you're down to 1 health when you start the next stage. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you usually get enough currency to go back to town, get some meat, heal up to full, and then you're, Bob's your uncle, and then you're kind of good to go. And
no, it's Jerome, not Bob.
Jerome's your uncle. Okay.
Yeah, Jerome's my uncle, not Bob. Yeah.
Okay. Now. They do have 2 other features, which I don't think do anything. So when you're in the shop, you can buy meat, and you can also spruce up your hut with stuff. So for 50 stone wheels, you can get a new thing for your hut. And then there's another dude who has a telescope, and one of the things you can do is view your own hut. And it's like Animal Crossing. I don't know what the point of it is. If you just have extra currency, you can put things in your hut. I don't think it has any bearing on the story or the ending that you get. It's just a thing you can do. And then the other thing, which I was never able to successfully complete, is you can buy flowers to impress some of the cave women. And you can choose
okay.
Yeah.
That sounds okay. That's different for an SNES game.
Right.
All right.
But every time I'd buy flowers, every time I buy flowers, they would pull back the curtain, and they would go, she didn't like the gift, and I did it.
You didn't know what type of. That's because you didn't know what type of flowers to buy, Dave. Come on.
There's only one type. It's just flowers. It's
you didn't know how to present it. You didn't know how to present it to her. Dave, it was your fault.
I guess so. I guess I had to get down on one knee. I had to do a whole song and dance. I don't know. I don't even think it has any bearing on the game. Couldn't really find any info on it. It was a dump waste of money. Now, I feel like they could have done something with this. They didn't really do anything cool with it. It felt like they just tacked it on. They're like, we need more stuff, right? Because the first game had an overworld, but it was point to point, like in Super Mario World. This also has an overworld, but you can actually free walk to the next area, which doesn't really do much because there's not really you go to the ice world, or you go to the tropic world, or you go to the water world, and then when you're done, you go back to town, you buy meat. I mean, it just didn't seem like there was a lot there, and they could have done some cool stuff with this, I think. If you could go back and buy permanent weapon upgrades, or extra health upgrades, or extra lives, or I don't know, some other stuff that was kind of meaningful other than sprucing up your hut. Maybe I would have been a little. Maybe I would have been a little more hype on it. So yeah, kind of not that great. Kind of half baked. If you play the original and play this one, personally, and I think a lot of people on the internet said the first one was a lot better. That was an arcade game that got ported to a bunch of different systems. I think that was a lot better. It was definitely more straightforward, although you could kind of choose different levels to do. There was branching paths and all that, so it did have some variety. I thought that game was infinitely better. Honestly, I think the graphics were better in the first one. The second one really didn't really do that much. Didn't really wow me with all the new stuff in there. Yeah, that's crazy. So one thing I did want to ask you though, and I kind of thought about this while playing Joe and Mac 2. What are your thoughts on the life counter in video games? And what I mean by that is, do you like, if you have 3 lives, do you like when it says 3 to denote the life, I'm on my third life, and it goes down to 1 and 1 is the end, or do you like it more and it tells you how many lives you have remaining, where it's 2 and 0 is your last life?
0 can't be my last life. No. It's like I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom right now, right? I have 7 hearts. Like it can't be like, okay, I have no more hearts, right? And then I'm dying. Like, no, I know I got 1 heart left.
Right.
So any hit is gonna kill me because I do have a heart left.
Yeah.
So I think we've come a long way with games dealing with a life bar or life meter or some sort. I think we were experimenting back in like the early 90s.
Yeah.
As far as like, what works and what doesn't work. So if it has it to where like you have no hearts left or no lives left, then no, that's ridiculous. I have 1 life left, so if I get hit, I'm gone.
So you like it when it shows the life that you're on, right? This is the last.
That should be it. Yeah. This is the last. This is your last hurrah. Yes.
I think I'm with you. And that's exactly how Joe and Mac 2 does it. So I think there's one thing that I can say positive about the game is they do the life meter in a way that makes sense, I think. Yeah. And I guess that's about it. I mean, there's not really there's not. I mean, there is a lot to say about the gameplay, but there's kind of a lot of negative, half-baked ideas there. A lot of stuff that could have been better with this game, and those are like kind of my negative points. The difficulty is a little tough. Now you do get 3. Well, I guess 3 continues, I think, and you get 3 lives each time. And then
continue is a must in every game.
Right.
I'm sorry. Like, I hate it when it was you die and that was it. You go right back.
Right.
No continues. Like that was ridiculous to me.
Well, they also have a password system too, which I didn't mention. One of the ladies that runs a shop in the town is your password save. They didn't have a battery backup, so they do have a password save. So anytime you do anything, or you beat a level, or you get some currency, or whatever, you can go back and then get a new password. But you have to go back to the town to get it, right? So I think if you run out of lives, you're out of luck if you didn't get the password. So, So I guess that's that's kind of
that was part of the course. It was part of the course at the time. Right?
Sure.
Like, you have to get the password and save the password, so you can always go back and you could always go back to where where you left off.
Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this game. It's a fine side scroller. If you want to play it, you have a Nintendo Switch, play it on Nintendo Switch Online. It's average. Pretty average. And I think the internet more or less agrees with my opinion. It was hard to find some reviews, but the general sentiment from kind of the retro outfits that are out there, the YouTube channels and the websites and all that, all kind of agree the game is pretty mediocre. I did find a handful of reviews from back in the day. 2 outlets that I don't necessarily know, but the best review with 89% came from Nintendo Game Zone. Interesting outlet. And the worst I could find, at least, was Super Gamer, which gave it a 75, which are much better than the review outlets now that are doing like the retro review, right? Playing the game today, does this game hold up? How is this game, right? Not so great. There was a bunch of 5s and 6s and whatever, and a lot of those outlets were saying that the game was the first game was better than the second game, right? It was kind of a half-baked. So yeah, pretty average, I would say. Now, if you want my review, you want my number in the matter, right? I would give this game a 6. It's fine. Fine. Game is fine.
Just 6? Like that is 6.5?
Just 6?
6?
You obviously you haven't played Joe and Mac 2. It's fine.
I think I have.
It's fine. It's fine. First one is better. First one is better by and far. Play the first one. Part 2 is okay. Part 1 is better. Part 1 is better. Mm-hmm. And if you want to get this game now, you want to get this game on Lukey, You can get it loose for $167.97. This game is pricey, folks.
I do own it.
It is in that Holy Grail. Is in that Holy Grail pantheon, I think, of games that cost a lot of money and are hard to find. You do own a copy of this.
I do own a copy of this.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay.
I've Joy Mac. I think I have Joy Mac for the NES, and I have Joy Mac 2 for the SNES. And Joy Mac actually came out for the Genesis. The original came out for the Genesis.
That's right.
Which Lukey has for like $80.
I really don't know why they didn't put out part 2 on more platforms. Because I think the first one was pretty well received.
Because you gave it a 6. That's why. They looked into the future, said Dave gave it a 6, so it makes no sense to port it to other platforms.
I don't know. I mean, it could have been a good game. It's perfectly mediocre. It's crumulent. I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
And correction, I have Joy Mac for the NES, Joy Mac for the SNES, and Joy Mac 2 Lost in Tropics for the SNES.
Okay, so, there you go. Dan with the heavy hitters over here. Never disappoints. I love it. Well, I think that about wraps it up, Dan. That is episode 32 in the books. And we want to thank you guys for listening to the show, for liking, commenting, and doing all the good stuff that you guys do. If you want to interact with us, and we know that you do, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Rated G for Gamers. So please listen, like, rate, review, and subscribe. And as always,
keep gaming.